Discover the incredible power of discipline. 7 Surprising ways it transforms lives forever. Jake stood in the echoing halls of the high school, a mop in one hand and a fading photo of his daughter, Emily, in the other. At 38, he was a janitor, a job he had taken in hopes of providing a better life for her. Each stroke of the mop was a reminder of his daily grind, the weight of responsibility heavier than the sweeping motions he performed. He felt invisible here, surrounded by bright young minds and opportunities his late father had always hoped he would seize. Yet the ghost of regret loomed. The economic inequality in their small Midwestern town gnawed at him, a constant reminder of how far he had fallen and how little he had to offer. When a glossy SUV rounded the corner, Jake's stomach turned. Out stepped Kyle, an old friend who had taken the entrepreneurial world by storm. Resentment bubbled up. Jake couldn't help but compare his life to Kyle's polished success. Inspiration twisted itself around jealousy as the sobering truth settled in. While Kyle had conquered his dreams, Jake's were crushing under the weight of reality. He returned home to find Emily hunched over her guitar, a shadow of unease clouding her usually vibrant spirit. After a brutal critique from her music teacher, she had crumbled. "What if I'm not good enough, Dad?" she whispered, her fingers trembling on the strings. In that moment, Jake's heart ached, pulling him between two instincts, to comfort her or to encourage the discipline that was missing from her practice. He understood the need for grit, a lesson ingrained by his father, but watching his daughter in pain brought about a different kind of hurt. Before they could delve deeper into the chasm of self-doubt, Jake stumbled upon a music scholarship that could change Emily's future. The idea sparked something within him, a flame of hope flickering against the backdrop of despair. But with that hope came fear. His mistakes were shadows he didn't want to cast over her dreams. Would pushing her too hard push her away? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let's continue. The urgency of the scholarship hung in the air like a storm cloud. Could he bear the thought of her not pursuing her passion, a passion he never chased himself? Emily's performance at the local competition loomed closer, the pressure mounting as she wrestled with debilitating stage fright and an unyielding self-criticism. Just as Jake began to feel a shift toward determination, an unexpected health scare escalated the tension. A late-night call from Emily's doctor unraveled the fragile steadiness they clung to. Jake's mind raced, the emotional weight crashing down as he considered their dwindling finances and the impossible choices he faced. How could he balance the care of his daughter with the pressing need to seek support, to open up, to let neighbors see just how vulnerable he felt? The sickening twist in his stomach deepened as a once clear purpose became muddied. As the performance date approached, Jake struggled with the urgency of their situation. With Emily's budding dreams at stake, could discipline truly be the weapon against uncertainty? Standing together, they prepared to face the music, not just in the performance, but in the harsh realities of their lives. He glanced at her, seeing not just a daughter, but a partner in resilience. What happened next would determine if they would rise together or be swept away in the tides of their challenges. The crossroads lay ahead, and he felt the fine line between hope and despair thinning by the moment. The morning of the performance arrived, bright yet laced with tension. Jake stood outside the venue, his hands shoved in his pockets as he watched nervous performers trickle in. Every single face reminded him of the innocence and ambition he once held. He took a deep breath, trying to swallow down the bubbling anxiety that churned in his stomach. The stakes felt impossibly high. Emily's future hung like a fragile ornament on the edge of a precipice. As people filled the seats, Jake turned to his daughter, who sat in the back fiddling with her guitar. Her blue dress seemed to blend against the vibrant decor, yet Jake could see the uncertainty clouding her bright blue eyes. Something in her posture struck him. It was as though she'd shrunk within herself, her usual enthusiasm dulled under pressure. "Ems," he said gently, "you remember what we talked about how discipline can sometimes help us when the fear feels overwhelming?" Emily offered a half-hearted nod, the brilliance in her eyes flickering like a dimming bulb. "But what if it's not enough, Dad?" she whispered, gripping the neck of her guitar. "What if I mess up? What if they don't like me?" In that moment, Jake felt his own doubts rear up. He had always been the one to encourage her to reach higher, to embrace the discipline that for so long had been central to his father's teachings. Yet here he stood, confronting the truth of how fragile hope could feel in the face of life's harsh realities. He took a step back, recognizing that this performance was more than a mere event. It was a test of commitment, of pushing through the discomfort. "Think of this as your opportunity to express joy, not just a competition," he urged, striving for an encouraging tone. "You're not doing it for them. You're doing it for you. Remember the thrill of creating, of sharing that with others?" Emily bit her lip, her fingers stroking across her guitar strings as if searching for a steady rhythm. "What if they still don't get it?" Jake clenched his jaw, not trusting himself to speak. He knew intimately what rejection felt like, how it eroded morale, how it taunted dreams. He swallowed hard, holding confusion at bay. "You do it because you love music," he finally said, his voice steadier. "You owe it to yourself to be honest in your performance, no matter the outcome." Just as Emily shifted her gaze towards the stage, their conversation was interrupted by the announcer calling the next performer to the front. With a sigh, Jake recognized the moment was slipping away. This was the time to act, to disrupt the cycle of fear that had infiltrated not only Emily's heart, but his own. He stepped forward, suddenly determined to confront his own unease. "Hey, let's get some fresh air before you go on," he suggested, eyeing the exit. "I need to talk to you about something important." They stepped outside, the air crisp against their skin. Jake's heart raced as he prepared to reveal a secret that had been buried deep within him, an unspoken dream slowly resurfacing. Words tumbled from his mouth, raw and unfiltered. "I never told you this, but I used to want to play music too. I never had the courage to pursue it." Emily turned to him, surprise mingling with skepticism. "Dad, you always told me not to give up on my dreams." He nodded, guilt flooding his chest. "Because of you. I want you to seize every chance you get. I never did. This is your moment, and I need to support you, not let my fears dictate our journey." The gears in Emily's mind visibly turned, and for the first time, a spark ignited in her eyes. She returned her gaze to the stage, firming her grip on her guitar, determination seeping into her posture. But before she could march forward, the performance started with the introductory act, an exuberant young man who seemed to radiate confidence. The contrast left Jake uneasy, and he couldn't shake the worry that this was only the beginning. What if the outcome turned out disastrous? Jake glanced at Emily, whose face had tightened once more, anxiety creeping in again. In this moment of vulnerability, a thought pierced through the fog of fears he harbored. What if this was the catalyst for change, not only for her, but for himself? With an uncertain smile, he obliged, "No matter what you feel now, remember this is about more than winning. It's about resilience." All of a sudden, the truth struck him. He had been so focused on Emily's journey that he had neglected to see his own path slowly unfolding. As the act proceeded, his contemplation spiraled. Was this their moment to not just confront challenges, but to redefine them entirely? The stage, lights danced like wild flames, shadows flickering across their faces. Jake's heart raced, anticipation surging through him. The moment to unlock their shared potential was at hand. And as Emily's name echoed in the air, he whispered a silent pledge to himself. This performance might just mark the beginning of change for both of them. The performer's footsteps drew near, leading them both to the edge of transformation. Little did he know, the next step would demand more than just their courage. It would test their belief in each other like never before. As the announcer paused to catch his breath, Jake's heart thumped in sync with the pulsing lights illuminating the stage. The electrifying atmosphere seemed to amplify his doubts, twisting them into tangible weight pressing against his chest. Emily's name echoed once more, but it felt like a summons, a beckoning to rise, to embrace fear and opportunity all at once. "Stay close," he murmured to her, trying to anchor himself in this crucible of potential. He sensed that the immediate future could pivot on a single moment, a decision to confront their combined insecurities head-on. Jake realized that the time had come for his own metamorphosis. Emily was not the only one on the precipice of discovery. "I want to tell you something important," he said as they moved to the side of the building, the sound of the crowd buzzing behind them. "When I was your age, I thought I didn't have what it took to pursue music. I let fear dictate my choices, and I don't want you to make the same mistake." Emily's eyes widened slightly, processing his confession. "But you always told me I should be brave, that it's okay to fail." A twinge of shame washed over Jake, grounding him further in his truth. It was easy to advise her when he hadn't lived by that same maxim. "I realize now that it was easier to encourage you than to take my own advice. I did not embrace my creativity, and in doing so, I robbed myself of joy," he confessed. This vulnerability opened a door for both of them. What had once felt insurmountable was now an avenue for connection. "What if I fail?" Emily's voice was barely a whisper, but it cracked like thunder in the space between them. "What if you don't?" The thought slipped out before he could process the impact of his own words. What if this moment changes everything, for you and for me? The shift in Emily's demeanor was palpable. Jake watched her take a deep breath, an inhale filled not only with anxiety, but something else, a budding sense of ownership over her fears. She looked towards the stage again, and he could see determination beginning to unfurl. "I've been thinking," she said, her voice steadier now. "What if I play something different, something that feels more like me?" His chest swelled with pride. "That's it! Own this opportunity," he encouraged, excitement bubbling through him. "Show them who you really are. You're not just any performer. You're my daughter, and you have a voice that deserves to be heard." The reality of his encouragement settled on him like a revelation. His fears had often restricted Emily, not just by way of his own doubts, but through the unconscious limitations he had imposed on her by never fully embracing his own dreams. "This is your chance to shine, Emily, but it's also mine. I want to support you in a way I never supported myself." She turned to him, her brow furrowed in contemplation. "You really think I can do this, without worrying if I'm good enough?" "I know you can," he replied, voice filled with certainty. "And let that carry you. You're not alone. Whatever happens after this, just knowing you followed your heart will matter more than anything." Emily's lip curled into a grin, the nerves replaced by conviction. "Okay, let's do this." She stepped toward the entrance, a newfound confidence lighting her path. As Jake watched her enter the venue, an unexpected wave of clarity washed over him. This performance was shifting their paradigm in a way he hadn't anticipated. It wasn't merely about music anymore. It was about finding freedom from their fears, about realigning their dreams. Yet with this clarity came another realization. He needed to confront his own hesitations, not only for Emily, but for his own future too. There was something dormant within him, urging to break free. Before he could overthink it, Jake took a deep breath and stepped towards the entrance, ready to step out of the shadows of his self-doubt. As he approached the stage just in time to witness his daughter begin to play, the exhilaration of unrestrained potential pulsed through him. This moment marked a new chapter in their lives, one that beckoned them to redefine success on their terms. But just as her performance began to weave a spellbinding atmosphere, a figure at the back, a man cloaked in discomfort, caught Jake's eye. Something about him stirred a feeling of foreboding, as if this encounter might threaten the fragile joy they were beginning to build. Little did they know that the journey ahead would require not just the courage to express themselves, but a pivotal confrontation with someone who embodied Jake's past insecurities, challenging everything he hoped to achieve alongside Emily. As the echoes of Emily's performance filled the air, Jake felt a cascade of pride and terror wash over him simultaneously. Her fingers danced over the keys, transforming nervous energy into something transcendent. Yet Jake's focus drifted toward the figure lurking at the back of the venue. It was like a cold draft cutting through the warmth of the moment. The man's familiar silhouette gnawed at Jake's instinctive fear, memories threading together like disjointed notes in a song. This wasn't just an intrusion of the present, but an unwelcome incursion of his past. For a fleeting moment, Jake's heart sank, but then he reminded himself of Emily standing resolute against her fears, a mirror of his own unspoken aspirations. He took a moment to breathe, letting the sound of her music ground him. Each note she struck reverberated through his bones, urging him to shift his internal dialogue. Here was a chance to reclaim what he had sidelined for too long. And like that, an idea began to form, an impulsive yet deliberate plan to confront both the lurking shadow and the roots of his insecurity. Emily's performance escalated, her confidence blossoming before a crowd that had once seemed so intimidating. In that moment, Jake knew he couldn't remain tethered to his past. He had allowed self-doubt to dictate his life in ways he never wanted to revisit. He needed to confront that figure, to face the embodiment of his fears head-on, not just for his sake, but for the daughter who now shone so brightly. With conviction surging through him, Jake steeled his resolve. He stepped away from the light of the stage, drawn toward the shadowy figure at the back, like a moth to a flame. The crowd blurred as he approached, and he could hear the tentative whispers of his heart warning him to retreat. But retreat was no longer an option. It was either engage or let the remnants of the past continue to overshadow his and Emily's future. "What are you doing here?" he called out, a mixture of anger and confusion lacing his voice. The man turned, and Jake recognized him instantly. Tom, a former bandmate who had always been more successful, more assured. In the past, Tom's success had been a haunting presence in Jake's life, a constant reminder of what he felt he had irrevocably forfeited. "I heard there was a performance," Tom replied, his tone laced with equal parts indifference and curiosity. Jake's mind raced, processing layers of history in the blink of an eye. "You used to criticize me for wanting to pursue my own music," he shot back. "Thought I'd never get anywhere. Yet here I am, supporting my daughter." Tom smirked, a trace of familiarity igniting feelings of resentment that he believed long buried. "And how's it going? You think she'll make it?" The taunt struck deep, igniting a fire of determination within Jake. Not only was this a moment to confront an old adversary, but an opportunity for growth, a professional reckoning. "She has everything it takes. It's about time I learned to believe in myself the way she believes in her dreams." Emotion flickered in Tom's gaze, maybe an acknowledgement of Jake's resolve, or a realization of the impact of choice. The past may have circled around him like a vulture, but standing here, grounded in the present, Jake found the strength to move beyond it. "I'm reclaiming my space," Jake declared. Each word became a declaration against his old self, a promise that he would no longer let fear dictate his narrative. And so is she. Through the tension, a current of possibility surged between them, raw and undeniable. Even as Jake confronted Tom, deeper introspection surged. How far had he allowed others to shape his identity and drive his decisions? With the steady rhythm of Emily's performance echoing behind him, he sensed the pivotal inflection point waiting to be seized. But just as he felt the tide begin to shift, Tom raised an eyebrow as if gauging Jake's conviction. "Let's see if you can keep up," he challenged, crossing the invisible line Jake had just drawn in the sand. Jake's heart raced. The man before him was not just a figure from the past, he was an unexpected catalyst for change. What Jake had thought he needed to bury might now serve as a channel for resurgence. The specter of insecurity began to fade as adrenaline pumped through his veins. But beyond this confrontation lay more questions than answers. Could he prove himself not only to Tom, but to himself as well? Jake stood poised on the threshold of his own evolution, each note continuing to rise toward a future woven with uncharted potential. And as he prepared to answer Tom's challenge, he felt the pull of something larger, a burgeoning source of inspiration, a radical redefinition of his path. Yet a chilling thought echoed within him, stark and unwelcome. What if this newly paved start led him right back to the very heart of his fears? Could he balance past and present, or would one consume the other? Jake squared his shoulders, staring Tom down. The challenge echoed around them, mingling with the last notes of Emily's performance. With every beat of his heart, he felt a rush of conflicting emotions, defiance, fear, determination, combining into an unquenchable desire to redefine his existence. Shifted past insecurities collided against the weight of this moment, and he realized that standing here was not solely about confronting Tom, but about acknowledging his own dormant ambitions. "Keep up?" Jake scoffed, but a nervous tremor threatened to creep into his voice. "That's rich coming from you." Tom's expression hardened, and Jake sensed both vulnerability and competitive spirit beneath that facade of indifference. Was this confrontation a prelude to a deeper reckoning for both of them? The unspoken challenge morphed into an invitation, and with it, an opportunity. "What's stopping you from chasing your own dreams, Jake?" Tom's question cut through the momentum, almost a dare wrapped in condescension. It reverberated in Jake's mind, a reminder of the creative fire he had stifled. Or is it just easier to hide behind your daughter's accomplishments? The jab struck like a knife, yet it didn't wound as it once might have. Instead, it spurred Jake into action. All those years spent watching from the sidelines, all the regret about what could have been. His moment was here, and now he had to prove to himself that he could break free from those shackles. "I'm not hiding," Jake replied, channeling the confidence he had observed in Emily. "I'm re-emerging. I've got her back, and I'm ready to have my own spotlight too. You're right. I've spent too long believing I didn't deserve it." Tom chuckled softly, a dismissive sound that ignited something primal in Jake. Anger ignited a flame of purpose within him. "You think saying that makes it true?" In that moment, Jake realized Tom was testing more than just his resolve. This was about defining his narrative, claiming ownership of his choices rather than letting them fester like old wounds. "I think taking ownership makes it true," he asserted, each word firmer and imbued with rising confidence. "I invite you to watch as I carve my own space in this industry, even if I had to walk away from you." Tom's expression faltered. Confusion etched across his face. Jake could sense a shift, a deepened reckoning with the reality of their shared history. "And to what end? What makes you think you're capable?" Jake hesitated, the moment stretching, as doubt surged momentarily, a ripple in the tide of his self-assurance. "Because," he started slowly, "I'm willing to learn. But more importantly, I'm willing to risk failing to discover what I can achieve." The unexpected clarity of his declaration sparked something in Tom, not agreement perhaps, but acknowledgement. In the metaphorical ring of their battle, Jake felt the air change around them, charged with the friction of past grievances reimagined as opportunities for growth. "Then let's see where this journey takes you," Tom relented, the competitive veil lifting just slightly. Prove it, both to me and to yourself. Though the challenge lingered, Jake could sense an unconscious shift from antagonism to recognition. This was no longer merely about Tom. It was about his potential as an artist and father. Each decision would depend on his willingness to push against the currents of history, the weight of doubt, and the shadows of expectations. With one final breath, Jake nodded, feeling the weight of purpose settle squarely on his shoulders. Then let the music begin. But as he turned away from Tom, prepared to embrace this dialectical dance of ambition and fear, something within him whispered a warning. It was the remnants of his fear, the early flickers of self-doubt that still lingered, promising a tempest if he faltered. This new path ahead stretched wide, but with it came uncharted challenges. Would the echoes of his past continue to haunt him from within? Or would he learn to orchestrate them into a victorious melody? As he rejoined Emily, who beamed with pride and hope, he couldn't shake the certainty that his journey was only just beginning. The crescendo of his life's music still lay ahead. Yet the unsettling thought lingered. Was he truly ready to embrace the chaos and uncertainty that change demanded? The moment hung delicately, the air thick with potential. Jake sensed that the next trial awaited just beyond the horizon. But what form would it take? Was it time to confront not only the external adversaries of his world, but the internal ones that still echoed within? Jake's breath hitched in his throat.
He embraced the moment back with Emily, the weight of his decision manifesting into an unshakable resolve. He couldn't afford to dwell on doubt. If he wanted to embrace this newfound journey, discipline had to become his backbone, guiding every choice he made. As they walked further into the venue, the atmosphere pulsed with creativity. Musicians leaned against walls, chatting animatedly, while artists displayed their bold ideas. Each interaction felt electric, but Jake concentrated on a singular thought. To turn the tide of his life, he needed to forge a new rhythm. The first step was to reclaim his passion for music, a fragment of his youth long hidden beneath layers of responsibilities and fear of inadequacy. Late nights spent practicing in his garage, his guitar strings singing beneath his fingers, emerged as vivid memories. He had buried that part of himself for too long, confused about whether he had ever really earned the right to pursue it. "Can we practice together tomorrow?" he asked Emily, watching her face light up at the suggestion. "Of course, I'd love that," she beamed, the enthusiasm stoking the embers of Jake's desire. But as excitement brewed, he felt the weight of other commitments pressing in. What if he failed to balance work, family responsibilities, and a fledgling music career? But wasn't uncertainty inherent to any worthwhile endeavor? Relying solely on instinct wouldn't suffice. Meticulous planning and discipline were key. Jake withdrew to the apartment he shared with Emily, feeling electric energies in every corner. He retrieved the faded notebook he had long neglected, pages filled with song ideas and half-formed lyrics. With a sense of urgency, he began to outline a schedule, detailing hours dedicated to practice, songwriting, and even performance opportunities. This was more than a plan. It was a lifeline. With each word written, the realization solidified. Discipline would wield the power to bridge the gap between aspiration and action. As the hours ticked by, he pondered how to amplify his efforts. He needed to hold himself accountable, turning aspirations into tangible milestones. Days turned into weeks, each one a testament to his commitment. Jake found moments to practice on his guitar, even while waiting for Emily to finish her rehearsals. He recorded snippets of melodies and lyrics in his phone. The more he worked, the more he knew he was unearthing lost talent, familiar strengths previously buried deep within. Then came the day he received a message that sent a rush of adrenaline coursing through him. An independent music venue was looking for local artists to perform. He hesitated as he read the details. Auditions were just a week away. What if he didn't measure up? What if his nerves incapacitated him on stage? For a fleeting moment, self-doubt wormed its way back into his mind. But quickly, resolve flickered back to life. This was an opportunity to step further beyond the shadows and prove himself, not just to Tom or the world, but to the very essence of who he aspired to be. "Why not?" he murmured to himself. "It's time to claim this." Jake found Emily working on her latest choreography, and he approached her with newfound determination. "I'm auditioning next week. I want you to help me prepare." Her eyes sparkled with excitement. "I'd be honored. We'll make it incredible, together." He felt a swell of gratitude as she embraced him, the fear losing grip in the face of purpose. They began crafting a routine that fused her modern dance style with his music. Each session brought them closer, solidifying not just their artistic partnership, but deepening the bond they shared as father and daughter. Yet with every triumph, Jake sensed the specter of Tom lurking in the background of his consciousness. The inevitable confrontation still loomed. How would he navigate the complex dynamics with someone whose dismissal still haunted him? Deep breaths steadied his nerves, preparing him for the battle ahead. He was learning that discipline was as much about self-determination as it was about resilience in the face of dissent. Jake couldn't ignore the echoes of skepticism that bubbled within him. They threatened to cloud his newly forged confidence. The week advanced, each day brimming with practice that felt deeply fulfilling. As the auditions approached, a sense of urgency intensified within him. Standing on stage meant confronting not just external critics, but the harshest judge of all, himself. He gazed out beyond the horizon, where uncertainty collided with possibility, and one question encased him with clarity. Would he summon the courage to face the audience, or would the shadows of fear envelop him once again? And as he stepped onto the stage to face this pivotal moment, he couldn't shake the feeling that the greatest challenge awaited him inside, an internal struggle that would either propel him to new heights or pull him back into the depths of self-doubt. The spotlight was ready, but was he truly prepared to meet it? Jake's heart raced as the stage lights flooded his vision, blurring the edges of reality. Each pulse of the bass reverberated through his chest, a steady reminder that he was standing on the precipice of his transformation. But beneath that ecstatic rhythm lay a storm of uncertainty swirling within him. This was more than an audition. It was a confrontation with the ghosts of his past, the shadows that had influenced every decision he had made. A brand new candidate for failure that he was determined to defy. The audience's chatter faded as he focused on the one constant, Emily's bright smile from the wings, reassuring him that he wasn't alone. Yet he felt the creeping doubt. Tom's dismissive words echoed in the recesses of his mind. "You think you can actually still pursue this?" He had to push away the weight of that snide questioning. Refocusing, Jake remembered his discipline, fortified over the past few weeks, like armor against self-doubt. Inhaling deeply, he began to strum the first notes of the song they had worked on together. The notes soared into the room, filling every corner as his fingers danced along the guitar strings, revealing that hidden part of himself he had feared to share. Surprisingly, he felt a flicker of clarity amid the nerves. Each chord was a testament to late nights spent shaping melody and harmonizing fears with hope. Still, the struggle persisted. Could his melodies capture the audience's attention, or would indifference be their response? He rated his performance on a scale inverted with optimism and skepticism, neither wholly accurate. With each note played, he felt something beyond mere music. It was a reclaiming of his identity, a courage nourished by the discipline he had cultivated. As he reached the choruses, notes cascaded effortlessly. For the first time in years, the act of creation transcended the confines of anxiety, morphing into sheer joy. The merging of his and Emily's artistry enveloped him, creating a profound connection not only with her, but with the audience too. Emerging from the performance, Jake realized the experience wasn't just about demonstrating his ability as a musician. It was about healing old wounds and rising above the constraints of self-imposed limitations. This was the moment he had envisioned, not solely about beating Tom's skepticism, but using it as fuel rather than poison. As the final strum faded into silence, he took in the applause, warm and affirming. This moment belonged to him. The realization settled deep within him. Discipline was not a prison, but instead it was the foundation shoring up the structure of his aspirations. The aftermath of the performance brought exhilarating surges of adrenaline, but Jake also felt the awareness of lingering concerns. Would he maintain the momentum he just built? Was being a father and pursuing a passion compatible? The complexities of his life were like intricate webbing, and every decision he made now felt pivotal. Backstage, the adrenaline waned, replaced by hard questions of necessity and choice. Coming face to face with those who had scorned his ambition could not be deferred. Tom was due to meet them after the audition. Jake could almost feel the weight of expectation surrounding that imminent encounter. Would the success of this evening be a mere flash in the pan, or could it be the foundation for something lasting? He stood poised at the intersection of opportunity and fear. His resolve hardened as he stared up into the mirror, catching a glimpse of who he had fought to become. The outcome hinged not only on what he had done tonight, but on what he was prepared to defend, on how deeply he was willing to embrace this rhythm he was creating for himself. As the door to the backstage creaked open, a familiar voice cut through the air, one that he had longed to confront. "So, it turns out you're back in the game, but how long will this last?" Jake's heart sank as Tom's eyes smoldered with challenge and cynicism. This was it, the moment he had both anticipated and dreaded. The pendulum had swung. Now it was his turn to face the accuser and redefine the narrative. With a steady resolve, Jake stepped into the light, ready to reclaim the dialogue, not just against Tom's palpable skepticism, but against the internal questions that had plagued him for so long. The impending conversation would test everything he had worked for, but he felt ready to confront this unexpected twist, eager to discover if he could wrest control over the unfolding chapters of his life. Jake stepped into the warm glow of the backstage lights, the atmosphere thick with anticipation. He could feel Tom's gaze boring into him, an almost tangible weight filled with disdain. This was more than a confrontation. This was an interrogation of Jake's choices, his worth, and his newfound journey. "Don't think just because you played a few chords you've turned a corner," Tom said, sneering as he crossed his arms. Jake's determination flickered for a moment, instilling a hint of hesitation. He was here to defend the burgeoning artist he was becoming, not to defend himself as a father or a man trying to rise from the ashes of self-doubt. But the challenge stirred something within him he hadn't anticipated, an evolving sense of self. "What if I told you this was only the beginning?" Jake's voice, though laced with uncertainty, conveyed a hint of defiance. It was a fragile balance, walking that tightrope between doubt and belief. Each second felt like an eternity. Tom's expression shifted subtly, skepticism deepening as he leaned in. "You really think you can juggle a music career and parenting? Your priorities are all wrong." That struck a nerve. Jake had wrestled with this very thought as he built his dreams one note at a time, weaving through melody and responsibility. "You don't know anything about my life," he challenged, his pulse quickening. "This isn't just about me anymore. Being a father has taught me about sacrifice and perseverance. If anything, it fuels me to chase what I love." The words spilled from him, a truth he had only recently embraced. Each chord he played was a reminder that life didn't stop just because he had obligations. Instead, it thrived in that tension, amplified by responsibility. Tom shrugged dismissively, but the armor he wore, chipped and tarnished, began to show cracks. So, let's say you do this for a while. What happens when the applause fades? What do you have left? Images of his daughter flooded his mind, her laughter twinkling like notes on a scale. Hope, Jake replied, the word ringing in the air like a bell echoing a truth he had almost forgotten. Even if the applause fades, the music doesn't. There's always a new song to write, a fresh start. Tom's smirk faltered as Jake pressed forward, emboldened by the realization that acknowledging his own dreams did not diminish his role as a father. The walls he had built around his hopes were beginning to crumble, revealing a core fortified by love and ambition. What if I fail? An uncertainty, a question wrapped in humanity. What if my melodies never catch anyone's ear? What if I become irrelevant? It terrifies me. He breathed deeply, grounding himself in the moment. But what terrifies me more is never having tried. As the conversation deepened, Jake felt the electric connection of vulnerability shatter the space between them. This wasn't merely a battle of wills, it was a personal reckoning. He stood there, not just confronting Tom, but reconciling his fear with a burgeoning identity. Every note I play carries weight. Every performance is one more step of discipline I'm willing to embrace. And if part of that journey is failing, then so be it. It's part of the song, Jake stated firmly. He saw a flicker of surprise cross Tom's features. For a moment, something in the unyielding facade cracked. With that small victory hanging in the air, Jake shifted his focus, considering the road ahead. It wasn't just about silencing Tom, it was about forging a path where he could be both a dedicated father and a passionate musician. The battle of wills had evolved into something more profound, a testament to personal growth fueled by the lessons of life. But as the moment lingered, Jake realized that this was only the beginning of a tumultuous journey, filled with unresolved questions. The silence left by Tom's antagonism prompted a deeper concern. Was he prepared for the lifestyle shift this would entail? Could he navigate both the sunny highs of performances and the shadowy lows of industry rejection? Feeling both the exhilaration of articulating his beliefs and the weight of next steps, he turned toward a world still filled with uncertainty. Ahead lay uncharted territory, requiring not just hope, but action. The stage lights had dimmed, but the fire within him still blazed brightly. He could feel Tom's quieter energy, sensing the shift. The antagonist had become a reluctant witness. The end of their exchange felt charged, pregnant with possibility. Before leaving, Jake glanced back at Tom, whose confusion was now palpable. You can doubt me all you want, but this isn't a flash in the pan. The real question is, how will you respond to the music of my life? As Jake exited backstage, the world outside buzzed with the potential for his next move. He felt invigorated yet daunted, standing at a crossroads of fatherhood and artistry, each path intersecting. Would he face the challenges ahead head-on, or would self-doubt creep back in and rewrite his narrative? The horizon ahead loomed vast and complicated, promising both risk and revelation. Making sense of this evolving identity would determine his next song and the accompanying journey into the uncertainties to come. Jake stepped into the cool evening air, the faint echoes of the music still lingering in his mind. The backstage confrontation with Tom had unveiled a part of himself he hadn't fully realized. The remarks cut deeper than intended, yet they had sparked a change. As he walked, he felt the weight of his decisions pressing against his chest, an intricate dance between ambition and responsibility tugging at his heart. In the weeks that followed, Jake embraced his new path with fervor, pouring himself into every note and lyric. Each practice session became a form of therapy, a way to cleanse the remnants of doubt laced into his daily rhythm. He set boundaries around his time, holding fast to hours designated for both his music and his daughter. The discipline of balancing these roles felt daunting, yet it was also liberating. His days transformed into a carefully structured regimen, one that featured guitar strumming and story writing interwoven with playtime filled with laughter and imagination. On one side of him was the artist, a tireless seeker of melodies. On the other, a father, committed to fostering the joy of childhood. He thrived on creating a space where both could coexist, a true manifestation of duality he hadn't thought possible. But the challenge of sustaining this balance was always present. One late evening, with his guitar resting against his knee, he looked out at his daughter's drawing scattered across the table, a colorful landscape she had created, filled with castles and dragons. "What a masterpiece," he whispered, an undercurrent of guilt surging within him as he remembered the nights he'd sacrificed sleep for his music. Had he shortchanged her for his aspirations? The thought lingered, gnawing at the edges of his resolve. As his fingers danced over the strings, he began to compose a song that encapsulated this dichotomy, the weight of ambition clashing against the innocence of childhood. He poured every longing, every hesitation, and every burgeoning realization into the melody. Creating this piece became cathartic, the spine of his growth. However, the highs of progress soon clashed with moments of artistic rejection. His first attempt to secure a gig at a local venue ended in disappointment. The owner had felt his material lacked substance and didn't resonate enough with the audience. The harsh words pressed on him, leaving bruises on his newfound confidence. For a moment, shadows of self-doubt crept back in, whispering that he would never grasp the elusive success he desired. Standing alone in his living room, with the guitar in hand, Jake grappled with the stark contrast of his aspirations and the reality of his journey. The clouds of uncertainty rolled in, persistently threatening his clarity. Yet something clicked. He recalled the essence of his conversation with Tom. Hope was within the music, a promise for what was yet to come. Exhaling deeply, he resolved to transform that rejection into fuel. He spent nights revising his songs, sharpening his lyrics, and embracing criticism as a catalyst for growth rather than a cessation of his hopes. Each revision birthed a new iteration of him, one who learned from setbacks and emerged more equipped to face what lay ahead. This wasn't merely about performing, it was an exercise in resilience. As the days morphed into weeks, Jake found solace in his discipline. Hurdles became learning opportunities, transforming his failures into stories that enhanced his artistry. Yet, deep down, he felt the ache of vulnerability, a persistent reminder of the stakes involved in chasing his dreams. Could he endure the tumultuous waves of rejection while staying anchored as a father? His relentless pursuit birthed not only artistry, but also deeper introspection. The very melodies he crafted began to reflect the battles within him, the ongoing struggle between fear of failure and the fight toward fulfillment. With each positive step, the lyric of resilience rang louder in his mind. Then came the moment that turned the tide. He received word that a local charity was hosting an open mic night, a safe space for emerging artists to showcase their work while supporting a cause. The opportunity pricked at his nerves and excitement simultaneously. This was a chance to test the waters, to declare boldly that he was ready to share his journey. In that pivotal moment, Jake was faced with a decision. Would he shy away from this chance, bound by the very fear he had fought so fiercely? Or would he step onto the stage and embrace the unpredictability of vulnerability? The music called him forward, shadows of self-doubt lurking in the corners of his mind, yet igniting a flame within his chest. As he penned his name on the sign-up sheet, he felt the weight of a deep revelation. This journey was not merely about acceptance, but rather the authenticity of his story. As he prepared for that first performance, Jake understood that regardless of the outcome, each note played, each audience faced, and each connection forged would enrich not just his path as a musician, but also his spirit as a father. The stage awaited, and so did the potential for transformation.
each chord strumming a heartbeat closer to who he aspired to be. But as anticipation swirled within him, he couldn't shake the feeling. Was he truly ready to confront what lay ahead? Was this performance going to mark a pivotal shift, or would it unveil deeper insecurities he had yet to confront? The moment of truth approached, promising both exhilaration and revelation. The night of the open mic arrived, the air alive with anticipation as Jake stepped into the venue, the aroma of fresh coffee and warm pastries wafting through his senses. This was it, his moment to bridge the gap between his aspirations and his reality. Each face in the crowd carried its unique weight of stories, but he felt an unshakable tether to every individual, connecting in their shared experience of vulnerability and hope. Standing beside the modest stage, Jake rehearsed the words tumbling through his mind. "This is my first time," he murmured to himself, trying to calm the swirling anxiety. Yet he felt liberated by the decision to share part of his journey, not just as a father, but as an artist reclaiming his voice. He glanced at his daughter, Emily, who sat near the front, bright-eyed and supportive. Her presence anchored him, reminding him why he was there. The lineup of performers slowly unfolded, each artist showcasing diverse sounds and powerful emotions, making the rhythm of the room pulse with creative energy. Jake listened intently, absorbing the vulnerability around him. The unease in his stomach eased a bit as he witnessed artists baring their souls. If they could stand up here, so could he. Finally, it was his turn. A fluttering unease morphed into a surge of encouragement as he made his way to the stage. The audience offered a supportive, warm round of applause that made his heart race yet filled him with gratitude. Standing in front of the microphone, he noticed the way the spotlight illuminated both his face and the guitar resting against his chest. Each moment crystallized in time. He took a deep breath, letting the warmth of the spotlight embrace him, grounding him into the present. "Hello everyone, my name is Jake, and I'm here tonight to share a piece that means a lot to me." His voice trembled slightly, but gained strength with each passing second. He settled into the rhythm, allowing the vulnerability of the moment to sink beneath his skin. As he began to play, a melody emerged, one rich with the echoes of all the times he had felt like giving up, each note resonating with the struggles he had faced as both a father and an artist. The lyrics articulated his journey, the sweet symphony of dreams intertwined with the bitter dissonance of fear. Every chord rang true. It was as if he was shedding the layers of hesitance that had held him back. He poured his heart into the performance, enabling the audience to feel his fears, his aspirations, and all the lessons learned from a life dedicated to discipline, both for himself and for Emily. Every strum catalyzed something deep within him. He was rediscovering forgotten pieces of himself, igniting emotions he had long tucked away. As he completed his set, he looked out into the audience's faces, and their reactions were overwhelming, a blend of smiles, nods, and empathetic expressions that reinforced his place here. The applause that followed washed over him like a tide pulling back toward the shore, grounding him in this triumphant moment. The final notes hung in the air, resonating with the same clarity that had pushed him to take control of his life. The weight of self-doubt lifted. He no longer felt shackled by what others thought, but empowered by his own truth. The transformation had transpired, not only on stage but within him. After his performance, several audience members approached him with kind words, reflecting their connection to his story. "You really inspired me tonight," a young woman said, her eyes bright with enthusiasm. "Thank you for sharing." A sense of fulfillment surged through him. It was not merely about performance, but rather the profound realization that sharing his story, with all its ups and downs, resonated beyond himself. Each conversation sparked validation that nourished him. As the night drew to a close, he found Emily and hugged her tightly, her embrace radiating infinite love and pride. "You were amazing, Dad," she said, her expression filled with joy. "Thank you, sweetheart. But it's not just my moment, it's ours." Jake had finally embraced both his role as a father and his dream as a musician, two identities intricately woven together.
This journey taught him that discipline, intertwined with love, fostered connections that transcended fear. He had transformed not just in the eyes of the audience, but, more importantly, in his reflection. The man who had finally stepped out of the shadows and recognized his worth. And at that very moment, Jake knew that he was ready to chase more than fleeting dreams. He was ready to nurture a life where ambition and fatherhood truly flourished. As he gazed ahead, endless paths unfolded before him, each promising adventures where music and love would weave a tapestry of remarkable stories yet to be told. This was just the beginning, a first powerful step toward a new chapter in his life. Now, it's your turn. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and ensure our community keeps growing. Comment your reactions and theories about the journey of Jake and Emily below. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait even one more second. Let's spread these powerful stories together.